The first two learning objectives in section 1.1 are to graph numbers on the number line, which is A, and then letter B is to put numbers in increasing and decreasing order. But before we talk about that, let's review what the numbers are called. If you look at the little graph here that's already put together, you're going to notice right here we have called the whole numbers. You learned the whole numbers basically back in grade school. Those are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They are positive numbers including 0, so we'll put that down here. The positive numbers including 0. And they're the counting numbers that you learned. Following that, there is then the integers. Integers include those whole numbers, so the ones you learned back in first and second grade, but they also include now negative whole numbers. So integers are positive and negative. Whole numbers, and they do include the number 0. Then what's going to happen, the next layer of numbers are rational numbers. Now rational numbers are the whole numbers we learned again in first grade, the integers you learned in third and fourth grade, and then rational numbers also include fraction answers. So negative 1/3, which is a decimal or a fraction, is considered rational. Now, when we hit Algebra 2X, we tend to talk about irrational numbers at the higher level math. Irrational numbers cannot be written as a fraction, which it states it right here. The value pi, the square root of 2, it can't be written as a fraction. These numbers do not have a repeating pattern in their decimal. They continue to go on forever. And then altogether, the real numbers are made up of both the family of rational numbers, so fractions, repeating decimals, negative whole numbers, positive whole numbers, and 0. Those are roll up to the reals. And then these irrational numbers, again, are numbers that can't be written as fractions. They're decimal patterns that keep going on. Together, the rational and the irrational numbers make the real numbers. So a real number down here is a number that can be put on a number line, and they're all numbers except square roots of negatives. An example might be the square root of negative 2. Those are imaginary numbers, and we're going to talk about those later on in the year. Let's keep talking about those irrational numbers for just one more slide. Remember, irrational numbers are ones that can't be written as a fraction, and if they're decimals, they don't really have a pattern to their decimals, and they don't stop or terminate. So we have 4 different numbers here, and which one's irrational? Well, this is a fraction, so it's not B. D is a fraction, so it's not D. Letter A is a decimal, and the thing here, though, is that it does terminate. It ends. It's a decimal that has an ending pattern, so that is technically considered rational. The square root of 2, I can't write it as a fraction of integer numbers because there's a square root, it's not an integer. And if I put it in the calculator, the number square root of 2 is 1.41459 ... It keeps going on. There is no repeating pattern to it. So this is considered the irrational number. Now that we know a little bit more about number theory, let's go to the first learning objective, is graphing numbers on a number line. Now what I would do is, because these are of different formats, we have a decimal here, we have 2 fractions, we have a square root, is get them all in the same format. So I'm going to use my calculator, and on the calculator I'll show you how to type these in. So here's the graphing calculators we have in class, and what we're going to do to type in negative 2/3 of the fraction, you type the negative symbol, the 2, the division sign, and then the 3. So let me point that out to you. Here's the negative button here, so do negative, then type 2, divided by is the same as that division symbol, 3. Then you would hit enter. When you do that, you're going to get approximately 0.667. So for the square root of 2 here, we're going to type in on the calculator the square root of 2. The square root button is right there, it's a little blue guy. Notice on the calculator the second button is blue, so to get to the second level you hit second, and then this button here. and it will pop up on the screen. You'll see a square root, and you're going to type in just the number 2. So go back here and hit 2, and it'll put a 2 in there. And then to wrap it up, hit enter. Once you hit enter, it'll kick back. You're going to get approximately 1.414. Now 5 halves on the calculator. To type that in, I'm just going to do 5 divided by 2 and hit enter. And when you do that, you're going to get exactly 2.5. Now to put them on the number line, let's do this first one here, negative 1.2. So here's negative 1, here's negative 2. Negative 1.2 is going to be closer to the negative 1, and I'm going to label it as such. Now, I don't have it written on the screen, but negative 2.3, again, was approximately negative 0.67. So I'm going to find that on our number line here. It's going to be between 0 and negative 1. It's going to be closer to negative 1, so I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to put the original format in which it was stated. It was stated as a fraction, so I'm going to actually do that. So I'm going to do negative 2/3. Now to type the square root of 2, that's about 1.4. It's going to be in between 0 or 1 and 2. It's about right here. And I'm going to label it as the square root of 2. The last is 5 halves, which is the number 2.5. 2.5 is right here, and again, I'm going to put 5 halves on the actual number line. Now, if you're asked to put these in increasing order or decreasing order, we're going to get to this in the next slide, but remember, increasing means go from the smallest to the largest, so I would just look at the number line, and for increasing order, I put this first, second, third, and fourth. For decreasing order, you go largest to smallest, so I'd write this one first, second, third, and fourth. So let's formally define increasing. Increasing is from smallest to largest. And decreasing is from largest to smallest. So if they wanted us to put these 6 numbers in decreasing order, I first would want to have them all in the same format. This one here is already a decimal, and that's as a decimal. So I'm going to convert these 2 fractions. 5 divided by 2 in the calculator is 2.5. Negative 7 divided by 16 is going to be a negative 0.4375. The negative square root of 13 is going to be a negative 3.6 approximately. Now from decreasing would be largest to smallest. So I'm going to find the largest number first. And so I have to think, is it this number or this? Now remember, for decimals, we would say it's the tenths is the first position. The second is a hundredths. So is 10.1 tenths bigger or smaller than 10.1 hundredths? A tenth is going to be a little bit bigger than a hundredth. So this is the first largest number. So we're going to put 10.1 as first. I'm going to cross it out because I used it, and then put 10.01 next. Cross that out. The next largest number looks like it's going to be 2.5, which was originally 5/2. So I'm going to write that next. Then it looks like 1 is the next one. And then the next largest, if you think of it in terms of temperature, negative 0.4 is warmer than negative 3.6. So this negative 7/16 is the next largest. And then the last one is the negative square root of 13. If it had asked for increasing order, I would have listed this first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then sixth. Would have been increasing order. I want to do a little bit more number vocab. So let's talk about opposites. Select all the combinations that are opposites. Be careful if you hear the word opposites in class. If it was 15 degrees outside right now, what's the opposite of that? Would be colder, negative 15 degrees. So opposite just means the sign changes. So A is not true, B is. C is not true, D is. E is not true, nor is F true. So there's only two of here that represent opposites. Another vocabulary word you might hear is reciprocals. Now, which ones are reciprocals? Be careful, these two, 6 and negative 6, are opposites. That's not true. What reciprocals is you flip it. So if I had the number 1/5, its reciprocal would be 5/1. So if you look at this, letter B, if I have 1/7, its reciprocal would be 7/1, which is the same as 7, but they're saying -7, so that's not true. Letter C is a reciprocal, that works. Letter D is close to being a reciprocal, but what D is a reciprocal and an opposite. Letter E, if I take 8, I can write it as a fraction, which is 8/1. The reciprocal of 8/1 is 1/8, so E is the correct answer. And F is not applicable.